Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MPJ, the new rock album review show. We're called Musical People and Journeys, and we like to go on a journey. And today, we are taking you on a journey. We are taking you to the steppes of Mongolia, with the rolling plains and the beautiful hills, and the rock music that comes out of those places. And in particularly, we heard of the Who. Now we introduce Uuhai and their album Human Herds. Dun dun dun. Anyway, interestingly, I was umming and ahhing about this because obviously we are fans of the Who, and we listened to the Who down in Southampton. Myself and the lovely Trish went to see them, and twice actually. One because they had a massive failure, but did half the concert acoustic, and then came back to give us the proper gig, which was incredible. So I sat there and I was umming and ahhing about it. I summoned Will to my office and gave Will a quick listen. Shall we? And he went, absolutely, we should. Was it worth it? Let's find out then. William, we will start with you then. You introduced me to the Who, about 4 years ago.
It's been a while.
It has 4 or 5 years ago, wasn't it? What do you think of these guys, who hired Human Herds? Definitely, I would say comparable, but what do you think?
Yes, so my biggest differentiation, I think, between them is these guys seem more like traditionally Mongolian-y music over the Who, where the Who have a lot of these Western rock metal influences in it, but a lot more of this seems to be more rooted in the traditional instruments, vocals. A lot more of it is the cool throaty singing, which I think is awesome. I've been listening to random throat singing music since before the Who existed, because I just think it's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Like how people could do that with their voices, which, man, it's awesome. Yeah. So obviously, I got summoned to our glorious leader's office to judge whether we should add the album in. Stopped thinking about them for a bit, then started listening to it with the intro track, and I was like, oh, cool. Playing Crusader Kings now. This is great. Just an awesome backing music to a turn-based strategy game, which made me very happy. And then the first proper song started, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I like it a lot." I don't know how else to keep wording that. It's really solid in different ways. Throat singing is such a unique type of music and singing. The only place where it drops down for me is songs like, Dracula's the most apparent one for me, when he's singing over throat singing. That's where the quality for me drops down a lot further, compared to things like the Who, where they are a lot better at doing that. Possibly, language is a thing. And if you're Mongolian from Mongolia, you're singing in English. It'd be a lot more difficult, but I would honestly quite happy just sit down for an hour and listen to them just doing traditional Mongolian music with throat singing and instrumentals. But this is really cool. And if you want something very unique, very different to anything I should have heard, definitely listen to this, because you will not regret it.
Cool. Trish! I mean, we've seen the Who.
We have. Okay. So for me, Human Herds sits comfortably in that niche genre of Mongolian folk traditions meets modern metal. The Who for me brought this genre of music to the forefront and to people's attention with throat singing and fiddles. Uuhai lean harder into the heavier side of things, I think, with a bit of a more aggressive pacing. It's powerful and clearly rooted in its cultural identity, which gives its authenticity. There's a hypnotic pull on some of the tracks that just makes the release linger in your head long after it ends. But no standout tracks that jump out or demand a replay for me personally. You know, the album reinforces that this scene has depth beyond its famous names like The Who. But for me, the album played it a bit safe, really. I don't know what I was expecting. I think, you know, I have The Who as the benchmark, which I guess maybe I shouldn't have. I've not really listened to any other Mongolian music. You know, for me, both bands, you know, there is that hypnotic stance to it. But yeah, for me, it just didn't give me something that I needed, I guess. I don't know.
I think so. I don't should apologise for comparing. It's only natural that we compare with The Who. It's just absolutely not, because that's the only benchmark we possibly have for this sort of music, really. So yeah, I don't think you should be apologising for that. It's just I will, and I did for sure. So. Lauren, this is your first fight. Have you listened to The Who? Have you listened to Mongolian folk metal music?
So, admittedly, like, my only knowledge of this sort of stuff is The Who. And even then, it's stuff that had been sprinkled in, like, over what I'd listened to before. Like, I'd never actively sought it out. And it sort of completely fallen off my radar. As I went on my own journey and found what I'd like to listen to, that's the stuff that I tended to listen to. And I think exactly like you were just saying to Trish and stuff, there's not a lot of this out there, which means you do end up setting benchmarks with other bands. Whereas with stuff like my melodic metalcore, like, there are dozens and dozens of artists and dozens of different ways of doing it. So you've got so much to compare it to see how it sits, that it's almost easier to analyse in that way. Whereas with music like this, that for me personally is infinitely harder to do. However, that didn't stop this album from being really cool. I've really liked that it was expressive in the way that when comparing it to other artists, it did, as I agree with her, it tended to sort of lock in on that more, this is more of a cultural representation. We're throwing some flavour in there to get you to listen to it. But overall, this is what we are, this is what we're about, this is part of who we are as people and the fabric of our culture. It sort of gets you and holds your attention quite tightly, but there are points within the album where it loosens its grip and you're just like, oh, okay, cool. And yeah, it is good though. It feels like a more heavier, bit more direct version of what The Who are doing and stuff, which I really enjoyed in places. For me, it's just like with some other music, it's a flavour that I haven't quite obtained yet, a taste I haven't quite acquired, and that's just because there's not a lot of it out there, so I haven't been exposed to it much. And I think over time that will start to sort of come in and settle, and I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this is what I really like from it and all that sort of stuff. Because I do that quite often with any sort of cultural music anyway, because you get a lot of it with like Navajo and Native American music and stuff like that, where it's that very spiritual, very connected, sort of grounded sort of sound. And that's one of the things I do like about throat singing, is it almost alerts that something primal within you of like, oh, it resonates in your gut sort of thing, which is really cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to exploring this a bit more, because it is something that just fell off my radar because it is quite niche in what it delivers. But yeah, overall, this album was good. I think it was a good example of how it can be done.
Now, we've all done good reviews up to this point, but let's go to Simon, who could show us how it can be done. Shall we? Simon!
Pressure at all.
Lots.
Look, like, okay, I mean, everyone's already given off a lot of opinions on this, and I feel like I'm going to be sort of like copying a lot of what everyone's already said. So, the vibe they give is undeniable. Like that first initial listen to that throat singing is amazing. But I do feel like the band sort of relies quite heavily on the throat singing and the fiddles a lot to be their primary sort of like the draw of the band. I like some of the tracks like Carkels, I think I'm saying that right. That's really cool. Like you feel like you're storming across the field on horseback, you know. But I like that then the next track is Paradise, and it feels like they're trying to do something very different. And there is quite a good amount of variety in the album of the different styles of tracks. But kind of like what Trish said, like I never found myself particularly like I never really listened to a lot of tracks apart from maybe Carl Curls. I really hope I'm saying that right. And like yes, it's quite unique, and yes, it's quite atmospheric throughout with the vocals. But I don't know. I've said this before on the other. I feel like it's missing that sort of X factor for it. The Who, as you say, we do compare the styles and the Who is pretty much the only thing we have really to compare it to on this. So, I don't know. I feel like the Who did this a bit better. That's not to say the band is bad or anything. I mean, maybe if I understood what they were singing about, I'd be able to comment on the lyrics. But yeah, yeah, it's a cool album. It's definitely worth listening to. It's definitely worth going through. And like I said, I think there's some good stuff in there. I'd just like to see them try and do something more with their sound, and either lean more into sort of like the Maiden-esque metal style, or do something a little bit more other than rely on the fiddles and the vocals to carry them at this point.
So I agree with everything that's kind of said. I think in terms of musicality, it's incredibly immersive. I could sit back and transcend, and I could literally envisage and picture myself with those cinematic views of being up the mountains or riding across the plains, and it could take you into the cinema version of reality. The reality of it is I'll probably be, shivering my bollocks off on a horse, going, I don't want to be here, give me the tent anytime now. But in terms of the cinematic view, the romantic view, it's entirely immersive in that sense. My favourite one was Paradise. Why Paradise? Well, let me tell you something that I think differentiates the Who to this band, and it must be a very difficult situation when you're in this band position to be beholden upon the traditions of your music and where it's come from, and to try to be true to that, or to bring in, if you want to bring in more people into this sort of music, then you have to have more of a catch, because otherwise you're just going to go, well, that was kind of nice, but replayability wise. So you've got to give people, which I think the Who have done very well, because they've brought in Western influences and mixed it beautifully with traditional Mongolian music, rather than and then bring you back to tradition. So they ebb and flow in terms of their musicality. They've had they've done collaborations with Western kind of musicality, which leans you more in there, and then will bring you more of an audience in there. So what do you do? And it must be very difficult to either sit in that, this is what we're going to be true to well, we want to bring more people and to into this sort of music and into this, and to appreciate it more. So you widen. So if you do water down, and maybe water down is a wrong word, but you maybe bring in more Western influences, then you're going to get more people admiring and liking your music. And I think with Paradise, that's what resonated with more. I felt that within Paradise, I felt there was a bit more of a Western influence that kind of made it more replayable from that perspective. So I think it's a really difficult task, and I think if you want to break into more Western kind of music and have more of a wider audience, you almost really have to bring in. And the Who have demonstrated that you can do that and not break with your tradition, and to merge these two musicalities together. And because the sound is brilliant now, let's bring in that little bit of stuff. And I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, in my opinion, if you want to bring out to a broader audience, to really admire that your music. I think that's kind of maybe what you were doing. I think the Who have done that to and they've done that really, really well, and they've done that with good taste. But in terms of technicality and delivery, this music is off the charts. And then I start to think, well, what about things like American Native Indian kind of music with Western? How would that kind of sound, And I haven't heard or seen anything, so I might be going on the hunt for that sort of stuff as well. Ooh. Who knows? Anyway, let's give our rating, shall we, out of 5 then. So, William, let's start with you then.
I gave it a 3.5.
3.5. Trish?
I gave it a 2.5.
Lauren?
I gave it a 3.
So did Pete. Pete, I haven't been interested to see with Pete. Pete gave it a 3. And Simon?
I also gave it a 3.
Ooh, I'm with William. I also give this a 3.5. So we're going to kiss goodbye. Very rare do we kiss goodbye to a Trish score, but we shall dispense with her score. And so Human Herds have 3.2, which puts it in our top 450 albums. Wait, we've over 650 albums now, so in our top 450 albums of all time. So, which is pretty damn solid. Really, a 3.2 for this sort of music, with a resounding, we think we'd like to hear more, but maybe with some more Western influences. Who knows? Maybe the same, but certainly musicality, you're up there with the Who. So let's finish off with our 2-word review then, shall we? William, 2 words from you, my friend.
Throat singing.
Trish?
Pied Piper.
Ooh. Lauren?
Primal and promising.
Simon?
Ooh, atmospheric horsepower.
Ooh. I'm gonna liken it to food. It's a Mongolian barbecue. Mwah. Okay, that's fantastic. Leave your 2 words below or hit the like and subscribe button. Love to hear. Thank you for putting up with us. Thank you for keep on rocking, and we hope to see you again. Goodbye.
Bye.